What's up, guys? Let's talk about some breathing exercises, breathing techniques, breathing resets for specific populations. So let's talk about, first we'll go wide infrasternal angle. So when we talk about infrasternal angle, it's the bottom part of my ribs where I can feel kind of the soft tissue, and I come up a little bit and I feel my ribs. So if I poke down along, I can start noticing kind of the way my ribs lay. If I'm wide, say I come on, poke out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my ribs are out this way, then it just lets me know where my diaphragm is. It means my diaphragm's flattened and in kind of a poor position. You're gonna have a bunch of compensations for that. But here's a breathing exercise you could do to try to reset that and try to bring your rib cage into a little better position. So what you're gonna do is use a box is nice. I'm gonna get my feet up. I want about 90 degrees all around. I'm gonna dig my heels into the box, slightly posterior tilt, so I'm gonna bring my pelvis into like a rounding position off the ground. As soon as I do that, I should feel my hamstrings kick on. What you might do is you'll see people kind of come up too far. That almost throws me into a little bit of extension. So just thinking about just bringing my tailbone off the ground slightly, both hamstrings kick on. At that point here, I'm going to reach overhead. I'm going to breathe in through my nose, try to fill, and then I want a forceful exhale. All the way out. The forceful exhale makes me get my external obliques on, helps me drive my ribs into a better position. We're also, because if I'm a wide person, that means my ribs are gonna, or my lungs are gonna be overinflated. So the exhale is forcing me to get all the air in my lungs, almost like wringing the lungs out, letting my rib cage drop into a better position. So here's a couple of reps that look like this. So a little bit of a tilt, my hamstrings kick on, arms overhead, in through my nose. Out, out, out. Pause for a couple seconds. Come back into it. When I come back into it, I'm not going to gasp for breath. I'm going to stay in this position. Exhale all the way out again. You should almost be able to talk at the end of that exhale. A couple good ways to do with the exhale too, to increase more back pressure. Put your tongue on the roof of your mouth. As you exhale, that'll increase some pressure back down. Maybe help you get a little more external obliques and let the ribs drop into a better position. Try that for about 5 breaths. 5 breaths, second or 2 pause in between the inhale and exhale for about 3 sets. Test something before, so maybe before that I'm going to test my hip internal rotation. Then I'm going to do this, I'm going to retest it again and see if it improves. Oftentimes you'll find your axial skeleton gets in a little better position, and then you'll have hip internal rotation. So no need to go slam into a rotational position where you feel a pinch. Try breathing first and see how that goes. So then let's talk about moving forward off the for the wide infrasternal angle. So we did the feet up, kind of 90-90 hip lift position. Now we're going to talk about adding some load into it. So same idea. You know, you can use the box. Let's use it without the box ones here. So this is be like an advanced progression of it. I'm going to dig my heels. I'm going to dig my heels, get a little bit of posterior tilt. I'm going to bring the dumbbell over. As I come over, I'm going to hold this position. Right? If I get in this sort of rib flared, broken position, this defeats the purpose. So essentially, we're taking an exercise a lot of people do at the gym and show how it can be used in a more efficient manner. So if I'm here, I'm dig my hamstrings a little bit, posterior tilt, get an inhale, exhale, reach long, back over, reset it, tilt, inhale. Big exhale. So we're taking, again, an exercise that most people, when they do, you see in the gym, they're broken and they're in this rib flare position. So we're setting the diaphragm over the top of the pelvis and the ribs over the top of the pelvis, inhaling, getting deep and long. So you're getting a nice, should be getting a nice lat stretch. This is actually kind of like a true core exercise because you're trying to not break into extension. So it's an anti-extension exercise. You're getting some hamstrings. There's a lot of bang for your buck in just such a small, simple move. So we continue on talking about infrasternal angle. So again, review, it's the bottom part of my ribs here. So if I feel bony tissue, that's my ribs. I drop in a little bit, kind of nice and soft. I have soft tissue. So for my narrow infrasternal angle, so we had wide, which was out here. Narrow is obviously going to be condensed or compressed in here. So this works well for me because I'm pretty narrow. So if I get my fingers in here and feel my rib cage, I feel like my rib cage is very narrowed and compressed. What's going on there is usually my external obliques or my abdominals have picked up too much leverage and they've driven my rib cage in too closely. So what we can do for that is we're gonna go use the same hip lift box technique. So hamstrings, right again, digging in the box. I don't want to come up too far. I just want a little bit of a tilt so both my hamstrings can kick on. From this position here, instead of going completely overhead, I'm going to reach up to the ceiling. So I'm trying to get my thorax to retract a little bit back. So I'm trying to get some pec as I reach here. So hamstrings, in through my nose. Now, the breath here is different. The breath here is almost like a melting out or a fogging. I'm almost letting the air just sort of escape out of my mouth. I don't want a forceful exhale because that kicks too much abs. So I want quiet inhale, relax my mouth, out and reach. When I do this, it's almost like you look like you're bored, just nice and relaxed out, not the hard pursing out. So here, let it melt out. If you think about it for the narrow rib cage position, if I'm in this position here, if you're looking straight down my body, the narrow rib cage is going to look like this. So what we can do is we can use the pecs to help retract the thorax and bring me back into a little more rounded position. Again, usually like with your narrow angles, you'll see people with shoulder internal rotation deficits. So a good, maybe check your shoulder internal rotation before, try a couple of these and see if it changes after. Hip stuff too. I mean, it can change some of these joints pretty quickly. So give that a shot. All right, so let's progress the narrow angles a little bit. So we did the hip lift, reaching. Now what we'll do is go into what's called, kind of like a diamond hand position. It's like a bear stance. So I'm gonna position my hands in a little bit of internal rotation. I'm gonna press my feet into the floor, tilt my pelvis slightly, protract away so I think like the floor is moving away from me. From there, I'm gonna inhale and then exhale. Quietly let it fog out. Inhale, exhale out. Each successive exhale, I'm pushing, continue to push through the floor and trying to hold my spinal positions there. Trying to get a little bit of physiological flexion without getting too much abdominals there. Again, test hip internal rotation, shoulder internal rotation before and after. Maybe try squatting and see if it clears any hip impingement or hip positions. From there, what we can do is let's show like a squat using, someone might have a narrow infrasternal angle. So I can use something like a foam roller to create some pec, get a little pec here. So most people, if they're narrow or if their ribs are mismatched to their pelvis, might go into a squat and they turn into this extended position to try to create stability. So extension creates too much stability or puts joints together. So it's, as we move, a lot of times the body's response is to try to see if we can put joints together to make it stable. Obviously that might work well in the short term, but a long term thing that's going to end up causing some issues. So what we can do is we'll use a foam roller, place it in between elbows, so kind of like in a goblet stance position. I'm going to squeeze this, protract a little bit on the exhale, so it puts my ribs in a good position as I'm going to go down and hold this spot here, come on back up. So again, getting some pec to allow my thorax to retract a little bit. So going from that narrow position, bringing me over the top, allowing my diaphragm, so my thoracic diaphragm, my pelvic diaphragm to sort of match each other as we go down instead of getting this sort of action. So we're getting this action. Obviously this could be loaded, right? So if I can go here, I'm gonna squeeze, hold this position, exhale out, down, back up. Pretty straightforward.